Spring is around the corner. There's blossom on the trees, and crocuses and daffodils are bringing splashes of colour to gardens and green spaces. But winter isn't over, and when the world outside feels a bit bleak, what can be better than escaping into a good book or snuggling up and watching a good film? Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sarah and I'm an English teacher. And in today's video, I'd like to cozy up with you on my sofa and tell you about some of my favourite books. So if any of you are studying for the IELTS exam, you may need to talk about this in the speaking part. But even if you're not, then I hope you'll learn some useful words and phrases that you can use to talk about your favourite novels, reference books or tomes. So in case you're wondering what the word tome means, it refers to a large, heavy book, a bit like this one here. And the word can be used formally, in a formal way, or in a humorous way. So if I wanted to put it into a sentence, I could say something like, the author of this book has written a weighty tome on the subject of flora in Britain. And the word weighty is a common collocation with this word tome. Well, it's a trilogy. These three autobiographical books give a hilarious account of the author Gerald Durrell's childhood, which he spent on the Greek island of Corfu with his eccentric family. For those of you who are not familiar with Gerald Durrell, or Jerry as he was known to his family, he was a British naturalist, writer and conservationist who set up Jersey Zoo on the island of Jersey. When Jerry was 10, he emigrated with his widowed mum and his older siblings to Corfu. The three books chronicle their lives. In his unwavering love of nature, Jerry also beautifully depicts the island's stunning scenery that is the backdrop to many of Jerry's adventures to collect specimens for his own animal collection, as well as the misadventures with the eccentric characters that surround him, both animal and human. So now I'd like to talk to you about some of the words and phrases that I use that are book related. So if you want to talk about the subject of a book, you could simply say something like, the book is about, or the book tells the story of. But I didn't use those phrases, I used a couple of others. So I mentioned that the books give a hilarious account of Jerry's childhood on Corfu, and I also mentioned that the books chronicle the lives of Jerry and his family. So the phrase to give an account, with account being a noun, and the verb chronicle are both used in more or less the same way, and it's when we want to give a kind of written description of an event or details about something. So you can simply use them as another way of saying the book is about, or the book tells a story of. So I also mentioned that Jerry beautifully depicts the stunning scenery on the island. So this word depict, it's a verb, means that you describe someone or something in a way that the reader or listener is able to create a picture in their mind of what that thing or person or place is like. I also want to talk about the word backdrop. So I mentioned that the stunning scenery is the backdrop to many of Jerry's adventures. And this word backdrop can be used in two ways. So in that situation, I'm using it with the preposition to. So I'm talking about what you see, the view, the scenery. but you can also use it with the preposition for, the backdrop for something. So in that case, I'm talking about the general situation in which specific events are happening. So for example, if you had a book about a couple who fell in love during a war, you could say something like, their love affair began against a backdrop of war. This is the first copy of My Family and Other Animals that I romped through. It's the first book in the trilogy, and as you can see, it's pretty battered. There's like pages peeling off, but it used to belong to my dad. In fact, he was the one that recommended this book, so yeah, I'm going to keep it for sentimental reasons, because obviously the book has a special place in my heart. So let's talk about this phrasal verb that I used, to romp through. So I mentioned that I romped through the books, I romped through the trilogy. So this phrasal verb, to romp through something, is used informally, and it means that you do something easily, quickly, successfully. So for example, it could be like I gave the example, a book. It could be something like tests, interviews. Maybe if you're applying for a job and you have several stages of interviews, you might romp through them and easily get the job. So yeah. So I mentioned that my dad recommended this book to me. So I just want to talk about this word recommend and the three structures that we can use with it and the one that we can't. So with the verb recommend, I could say, my dad recommended that I read the book. Okay, this is possible. It sounds slightly more formal than the other two options I'm going to give you. But if we think about the structure here, we've got the subject verb, my dad recommended, in this case in the past, and then we have a connecting word that, which is optional, and then I, another subject, and then verb 1, read. Okay, so it doesn't matter if it's he, read, she, read, it's just the verb 1. The second option that I could use is my dad recommended reading the book. So you just use the verb in the ing form and then you don't have to worry about anything else. So this is very common in spoken English. Or the final option is to use the object to say what it is that's being recommended. So I think I said, my dad recommended the book to me. So you have to put whatever it is that's being recommended, for example, the restaurant, the book, the movie, after the word recommended. He recommended the book, and then you say to me, to you, to him. Okay? The structure that you cannot use is he recommended me the book. Okay, so we can't put the me or the you or the them or the him, directly after the verb. It has to be the thing and then to whom. The first time I read this book was when I was about 12. It was during the summer holidays, and I'd set up my hammock under this huge walnut tree in my grandparents' garden. And it was a balmy summer, and I would lie there just lost in Jerry's descriptions of fireflies and olive groves and the Mediterranean Sea lapping at the shore. I just was immediately transported to Corfu. And then as it got darker and the light faded, I would close my book and I would feel like I had just been on holiday on this sun-drenched, enchanting isle. And yeah, it was a beautiful experience, a beautiful escape from my life in England. The last time I read the trilogy was actually very recently. One of my students likes to read books during our classes so that he can practice his pronunciation and I can help him with the vocabulary. And yeah, we really enjoyed it. We shared many laughs together. So at the beginning of the first book, we're introduced to Jerry's eccentric family. So this includes his mother, who is a widow. She's a very empathetic woman. She spends a lot of her time in the kitchen cooking for the family and reading recipe books. And then we have the oldest brother, Larry, who is an intellectual, and in fact he went on to become a famous writer. But he, in the book, is quite impractical and is often very condescending to the other members of the family. Then the next brother is Leslie, and he's often described as doing things belligerently. So yeah, he has a bit of a temper on him, but he is very practical. In fact, he builds a boat for Jerry, which is named the Bootle Bum Trinket, which is quite amusing. And yes, Leslie is gun mad and spends a lot of his time polishing his guns and out shooting. And then of course we have Margot, who is Jerry's older sister, and she is very caring and compassionate, but is not so bright, and she spends a lot of her time worrying about her weight and her acne, and is portrayed in the book as a bit of a lovelorn free spirit. And lastly we have Jerry, and Jerry, when he's not being homeschooled, which is quite intermittent, he is exploring the island and observing and collecting animals, chatting and eating fruit with the locals, going out on adventures in his boat with his dog Roger, and yeah, having a great time exploring the island. The family are well looked after by their taxi driver friend Spiro, who's a local, and he can conjure the impossible and fix the unfixable for them. And then the other person that's much loved by the family is the shy, self-effacing Dr. Theodore Stephanides, who is a British-Greek polymath with an encyclopedic knowledge, and he teaches and mentors Jerry. Well, as they are memoirs, there's not a plot like a novel. They're set in the 1930s, and the first book begins with the family's decision to move to Corfu. And this book is divided into 3 sections, with each section describing the events that take place in each of the 3 villas that they called home. And then the other 2 books continue in the same vein as Jerry enters adolescence. Told from Jerry's perspective, we go on adventures with the animal-obsessed boy, exploring the island and meeting unusual characters along the way. We also observe Jerry's struggles with his private tutors. We meet the artistic and literary guests that Larry has invited to stay with them, and go on family trips along with Spiro and Theo. We attend a birth, go fishing with a convict, befriend a bear, and also attend many parties too. Okay, let's talk about some other book-related words and phrases. So I mentioned that the books are not novels, they don't have a plot like a normal novel, but that they are memoirs. So memoirs, basically it's a synonym of an autobiography. Memoirs are written record, usually by a famous person, of their life and their experiences. Another phrase that I want to talk about is the phrase set in. So I mentioned that the books are set in Corfu in the 1930s. So you may be familiar with this one, but I think it's worth mentioning just in case you're not. So if we say that a book is set in a particular place or time, we want to say that the events occur, the events happen in that specific time or place. face. So when I talked about the second and third book, I mentioned that the books continue in the same vein as Jerry enters adolescence. So in the same vein is a phrase that means in the same mood, in the same style, with the same qualities or characteristics. So the first book, we read about Jerry, we learn about his family, we meet his family, we hear funny stories about things that happen to them, we read descriptions of the beautiful scenery and so on, and it's more of the same in the second and third book. These books are full of wit and charm, and the exploits of his family will have you laughing until tears stream down your face. But aside from the comedy, what I love is the absolutely exquisite way that Jerry paints a picture with his words. There are still parts of the book that I remember because of this, and one example of this is at the beginning of My Family and Other Animals, when Jerry is describing their ferry crossing as they're going to Corfu.
He writes, "The sea lifted smooth blue muscles of wave as it stirred in the dawn light, and the foam of our wake spread gently behind us like a white peacock's tail, glinting with bubbles." So if you're looking for a light-hearted escape to a sun-soaked island in the Mediterranean, and like Jerry, you have a desire to marvel at the wonders of nature, as well as be entertained by the quirks and idiosyncrasies of those around him, then this is the book for you.
So in my summary of the book, I mentioned the comic exploits of the family that will have you laughing until tears stream down your face, which is exactly what happened when my student and I read it recently. We were both crying with laughter at some points in the story. And so I want to focus on this word exploit. In this case, we're using it as a noun, and it's often used in the plural with an S. And exploits are things that are unusual, brave, or funny that someone has done. In reference to the family, the eccentric family, I also mentioned that they have quirks and idiosyncrasies. So these words are fairly similar. They basically refer to, well, if we take quirks for example, this refers to someone's unusual habits or the unusual parts of someone's personality. So you could say that collecting animals is not something that people typically do and is one of Jerry's quirks. And then the word idiosyncrasies is very similar. It can refer to a strange or unusual habit or a strange or unusual way of behaving. So if you read the book, you'll see that Dr. Theodore Stephanides has a very unusual, kind of specific to him way of communicating, and his personality is a little bit different from others.
Yes, between 2016 and 2019, the series The Durrells, loosely based on the trilogy, was broadcast on TV here in Britain. You can now watch it on Netflix, and I'd highly recommend it.
So now over to you. I have two questions for you. The first question is, what was the last book that you became engrossed in? So if you're not sure what this phrase to be or become engrossed in or by, you can use either preposition. If you're not sure what that phrase means, it means that you're putting all of your attention into that thing or into doing that thing. so much so that maybe you're not noticing what's going on around you. So in the comments below, if you could finish this sentence. The last book that I was engrossed in or by was ... You fill in your answer. And then the other question I have is, what are some of your favourite books and why? I'd love to read your comments and also get some recommendations. That would be great. Thank you for watching my video today. I hope that you found it interesting to learn about my favourite books and that you've learned some useful phrases and words to talk about the world of books. So if you do have any questions about vocabulary, please comment below, and then I will be making Instagram videos based on the vocabulary, or the words, the phrases, anything that you have questions about. And those short videos will be on my Instagram account, which is English Sarah UK. And together with this video, there will be an accompanying article, which you can find on my website, which is englishsarah.co.uk. And together with the article, there will be 2 vocabulary tasks for you to review the vocabulary that's come up in the video today, plus some of the other vocabulary that I know is likely to be new for many of you. And if you have any questions, any comments, please let me know either here or on Instagram. And you will find the links to both my Instagram and my website below in the description box. So the last thing I'd like to say is, if you've enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, share with anyone that you think may find it interesting, and please subscribe. And I will be back soon with a new video.